Let's talk about America and Iran. Two nations seemingly locked in an eternal dance of diplomacy and discord. Their story is one of deep-seated historical grievances, strategic competition, and a persistent struggle for influence in a volatile region. A relationship as tense as a divorced couple, constantly navigating the complexities of a shared space and conflicting interests. Every interaction is fraught with suspicion, every agreement viewed with skepticism. Forced to co-parent the Middle East, a region teeming with its own challenges, further complicated by the competing ambitions of these two global players. Their actions ripple outwards, impacting the stability and security of the entire area. For decades, their mistrust and broken deals have defined their interactions. Treaties signed with fanfare crumble under the weight of mutual suspicion. Handshakes meant to symbolize progress become mere photo opportunities. Have shaped global headlines, dominating news cycles and influencing international policy. The world watches with bated breath, knowing that any misstep could have far-reaching consequences, affecting everything from gas prices to international security. The delicate balance of the global economy is often at the mercy of their relationship, with fluctuations in oil prices and geopolitical tensions directly impacting everyday lives. At the heart of it all, nuclear technology. A source of both potential progress and immense danger, it has become the central point of contention in their ongoing saga. Iran claims it wants peaceful energy, a sovereign right to develop its resources and provide for its people. They maintain that their nuclear program is solely for civilian purposes, adhering to international regulations and safeguards. America and its allies see a secret bomb program. They fear that Iran's nuclear ambitions extend beyond peaceful applications, posing a significant threat to regional and global security. This fundamental distrust has led to sanctions, covert ops, a constant cycle of pressure and retaliation, further fueling the animosity between the two nations, and a constant state of high alert. Military forces on both sides remain vigilant, prepared for any potential escalation. The region is a tinderbox, with the slightest spark threatening to ignite a major conflict. In 2025, things took a wild turn. The already precarious situation reached a boiling point, pushing the two nations closer to the brink than ever before. There was a brief glimmer of hope, a fleeting moment when diplomacy seemed poised to prevail. Negotiations resumed, offering a potential path towards de-escalation and a more stable future. But it quickly gave way to conflict. The fragile peace shattered, replaced by renewed hostilities and a dangerous escalation of military activity. Secret talks, public denials, a web of deception and misinformation further clouded the already complex situation. Trust eroded, replaced by accusations and counter-accusations. Military strikes, a stark reminder of the ever-present threat of armed conflict. The consequences of these actions reverberate throughout the region and beyond. This year has been a diplomatic minefield. Every step forward seems to trigger another explosion, making progress towards a lasting resolution incredibly difficult. We'll walk through the timeline, examining the key events and decisions that have shaped this tumultuous year. Failed peace talks, military escalation, the sequence of events that led to the current crisis, and the political fallout in the U.S. The domestic pressures and political considerations that influence America's foreign policy decisions. Why did a potential deal collapse? What were the sticking points, and who was responsible for the breakdown in negotiations? How did bombs start falling? What triggered the escalation of military action? And what are the potential consequences of this renewed conflict? And what does it mean for people just trying to live their lives? The human cost of this geopolitical struggle, the impact on ordinary citizens caught in the crossfire. When these two giants clash, the stakes are incredibly high, and the potential for miscalculation is ever present. The tremors are felt everywhere. No corner of the globe remains untouched by the repercussions of their conflict. So let's break it down, step by painful step. Unraveling the complexities of this ongoing crisis, one event at a time. Welcome to the front row of a global drama, a story of power, politics, and the enduring struggle for peace. The year began with an unexpected twist in international relations. America and Iran, two nations with a deeply strained history, found themselves sitting down to talk in Oman. This small, strategically located country in the Middle East has long been known as a discreet and reliable mediator, a place where seemingly impossible conversations could potentially take place. High-level officials from both sides cautiously gathered in Muscat, the capital, aiming to find a path toward de-escalation and ultimately to end the long-standing nuclear standoff that had kept the world on edge for years. The stakes were incredibly high. The initial mood was cautiously optimistic, a fragile hope hanging in the air, with diplomats carefully choosing their words, using terms like constructive to describe the atmosphere and professional to characterize the interactions. The core of the talks focused, as it had for so long, on Iran's uranium enrichment program. The U.S. and its allies wanted a complete halt to the program, seeking verifiable guarantees that Iran would not develop nuclear weapons, while Iran, for its part, wanted significant and lasting sanctions relief, arguing that its nuclear program was for peaceful purposes only. For 2 months, intense diplomacy replaced the all-too-familiar drumbeat of potential war, a welcome respite for a region already fraught with conflict. The stakes in these Omani talks were truly enormous, with implications stretching far beyond the borders of Iran and the United States. A successful deal, a genuine breakthrough, could potentially avert a catastrophic conflict in the Middle East, and perhaps even beyond. But despite the high stakes and the initial optimism, old suspicions and deep-seated mistrust lingered beneath the surface, threatening to derail the entire process. America and its allies feared that Iran was simply stalling for time, using the talks as a smokescreen to continue advancing its nuclear program in secret, while Iran, on the other hand, deeply doubted the sincerity of U.S. promises, particularly after what it perceived as past betrayals and broken agreements. This pervasive atmosphere of mistrust poisoned nearly every proposal and counter-proposal, making genuine progress exceedingly difficult. And as the unspoken deadline for a deal rapidly neared, the initial sense of optimism began to noticeably fade, replaced by a growing sense of anxiety and frustration. Building bridges over decades of deep-seated hostility and mutual suspicion proved to be far more difficult and complex than anyone had initially hoped or anticipated. The entire world watched with bated breath as the fragile hope for a peaceful resolution slowly slipped away, replaced by the grim prospect of renewed confrontation. The diplomatic stage was now ominously set for the next act in this high-stakes drama, an act whose outcome remained uncertain and fraught with peril. Under the Omani sun, where the desert sands meet the modern skyline, a delicate dance of diplomacy was underway. Muscat, with its neutral stance, had become the unlikely stage for a high-stakes negotiation. But beneath the surface, cracks in diplomacy widened, revealing deep-seated mistrust and conflicting agendas. The initial optimism began to fade as the two sides struggled to find common ground. The 2-month deadline, initially seen as ample time, became a pressure cooker, each ticking second amplifying the tension. The weight of expectations grew heavier with each passing day. The pressure exposed old wounds, reminding both sides of past betrayals and unresolved grievances. Decades of animosity cast a long shadow over the negotiating table. America demanded a total and verifiable end to Iran's uranium enrichment program, a non-negotiable point for Washington. The U.S. insisted on complete transparency and irreversible steps. No compromise. The American delegation stood firm, unwilling to concede on this core issue. Iran, however, saw this demand as an unacceptable attack on its sovereignty, a blatant attempt to dictate its future. They viewed their nuclear program as a symbol of national pride and technological advancement. They were unwilling to completely surrender its nuclear program, which they maintained was for peaceful purposes. The Iranian delegation argued for their right to develop nuclear technology for energy and medical applications. Memories of the 2015 deal, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, once hailed as a landmark achievement, then unilaterally abandoned by the U.S. under a new administration, made Iran deeply wary of American promises and long-term commitment. The shadow of that broken agreement loomed large over the current negotiations. Talks stalled over the level and scope of enrichment, a seemingly insurmountable obstacle. The issue of Iran's ballistic missiles, a source of regional instability, and Iran's expanding regional influence through proxy groups further complicated the already fragile negotiations. The U.S. wanted a grand bargain, encompassing not only nuclear issues but also addressing Iran's broader behavior in the region. Iran steadfastly refused to link these unrelated issues to the nuclear file, insisting on a narrow focus. Neither side blinked, locked in their entrenched positions. The atmosphere in the negotiation room grew increasingly tense and unproductive. The deadline passed with no agreement, a stark testament to the deep divisions and lack of trust. Hopes for a peaceful resolution fizzled out, leaving behind a sense of profound disappointment and missed opportunity. Diplomacy failed to bridge the gap, creating a dangerous vacuum, ripe for escalation and miscalculation. Hardliners on both sides felt vindicated, their skepticism about the possibility of a negotiated solution seemingly confirmed. The window for peace slammed shut, perhaps not permanently, but with a resounding finality for the time being. A darker, more violent phase, fraught with uncertainty and peril, was about to begin, casting a shadow over the region and beyond. The failed peace talks lit the fuse. Israel, convinced Iran's nuclear program was an existential threat, struck first. Israeli warplanes launched major airstrikes on Iranian nuclear sites and missile sites. The attack triggered open war, no longer a shadow conflict. Iran responded with missile strikes against Israel, vowing a crushing response. The region's fragile stability shattered instantly. The world watched in horror as the conflict escalated. The UN called for a ceasefire, but military momentum took over. The US, Israel's closest ally, faced pressure to intervene. Months of negotiation were replaced by the reality of war. The game had changed. Everyone was forced to pick a side. The Middle East was on fire. With Israel at war, the US was pulled in deeper. Under immense pressure, President Trump ordered direct strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. Fordow, Natanz, Isfahan, key sites were hit in a show of force. Trump called it a spectacular success, framing it as a necessary police action. The Pentagon touted major damage, but experts debated how much Iran's program was truly set back. Iran's response, fury and defiance, vowing to defend its sovereignty. The strikes united Iranians against a foreign enemy. Far from surrendering, Iran's resolve hardened. The dream of diplomacy faded into the background. Back in Washington, Trump's strikes on Iran sparked a political firestorm. Congress, led by Senators Kaine and Paul, tried to limit the president's war powers. The Senate debate was fierce. Some warned of another endless war, others defended the president's authority. The resolution to restrict Trump's power narrowly failed. The Senate's decision gave Trump a green light to continue military action. The modern presidency's power over war was affirmed. For now, Iran policy would be dictated from the Oval Office. Amid the chaos, rumors swirled of a secret U.S. offer, $30 billion for Iran's peaceful nuclear program. The idea, abandon weapons, get massive aid, was floated, then quickly denied by Trump on social media. He called it fake news, insisting no such deal existed. Was it a real proposal? A leak? Or just misinformation? The episode deepened confusion and mistrust. Any hope for renewed diplomacy seemed even more remote. The U.S. approach to Iran looked more dysfunctional than ever. As military dust settled, another diplomatic door slammed shut. The Trump administration considered easing some sanctions as a gesture for talks, but after a defiant speech by Iran's supreme leader, mocking U.S. efforts, Trump canceled the plan. The window for de-escalation closed. Iran's foreign minister called U.S. strategy erratic and unpredictable. Mixed signals, strikes, rumors of aid, then renewed sanctions, made dialogue impossible. The cycle of provocation and reaction took over. Diplomacy was left in tatters. Where are we now? The U.S. and Iran are locked in a tense, unstable standoff. Diplomatic channels are severed, replaced by threats and military action. America's strategy maximum pressure now enforced with bombs as well as sanctions. Iran's response, defiant resistance, vowing to rebuild and fight on. Both sides are betting the other will blink first. A perilous game of chicken. Why does this matter? A major war would send oil prices soaring, destabilize economies, and trigger new crises. The world is watching, anxious and uncertain. This isn't a distant problem. It's a global security crisis. The fragile peace we take for granted is under threat. The outcome remains terrifyingly uncertain.